the 25th of June, Rabbi Levitt, Gemora.
Good morning, Phil. Welcome.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Baruch Hashem. Okay. Okay, we're ready to go. And let's see. So we are, where are we? Oh, so we are, so we explained yesterday about this case, what the Gemora comes out, what the Beis Din is supposed to do. We don't listen to the benefactor's plea to give it back to the one that he gave it to. We tell him, if you want to give him this gift, write another document and do it today and give it to him. Because like that, there won't be any frauding of Jew number 2, who was already given the property in question. And now we go to Maskit Law Reb Zvid.
Maskit Law Reb Zvid. Reb Zvid objected. Kaha ed to ed. But the Mishnah and the Brisa, Diyat Tika Os Ka Tane, state that they're talking about sickbed wills. So what's the problem? Let's see.
Sickbed will?
No, sickbed is a Gemora, but it didn't say that. It just used the word wills in law school. They added it.
The word sickbed is in the English. The Mishnah implies that if the benefactor tells us to return the will, we do so, while the Brisa says we don't. Oh, so it's a contradiction.
Oh, in other words, that's really the Gemora's answer. There was a contradiction between the Mishnah and the Brisa because they said contrary dinim. And the Gemora resolved the contradiction by saying, oh, that's the reason that the din are different is because they're talking about different cases. One's talking about the Shchiv Meira, that he's a bar mahaderhu. He could go back on his decision to give it to Jew number 1, and he can decide to give it to Jew number 2. So go right ahead. And so therefore we would give back the document to Jew number 1. Because in any case, Jew number 2 is holding the later dated document, so he'll win anyway. Jew number 1 is not going to be able to defraud him because the benefactor is allowed to change his mind. But we said that the case of the Mishnah where it says don't give it back was talking about a matnas bori. And accordingly, he's not a bar mahadir. The document, if he writes a matnas bori, that document is not to be, he can't change the mind. So truth is, I don't know what, when the Gemora says Lav Bar Mahader, who I don't know what it's referring to the document, it's referring to the person that wrote it, but it's really, it doesn't really matter. It's the same thing. He can't change his mind. And so therefore, we can't give it back to Jew number one because he would win with that document. And so therefore, that's what we say. We give it to, we say, if you want to write a document, if you want to give it to Jew number one, Mr. Benefactor, so write him a document right now. So now that was all very nice. Everything was worked out. Now Reb Zvid just brings up a problem. It seems like he's saying that's a very nice answer that you've said, that this Bryce is talking about this, and that Bryce is talking, and the Mishnah is talking about that, but you can't make that, you can't answer like that. He's saying, I idi ve'idi daitikos kotani. In both the Mishnah as well as the Brisa, we're talking about a deathbed gift. And so in both cases, you should be able to change your mind. So why is it that in the Mishnah, we have a different result and we don't give the document back? That's what's gonna. That's what Reb Zvid's question boils down to. Okay. So now we go further. Ela Amar Reb Zvid. He's going to answer his own question.
Ela Amar Reb Zvid. Rather, Reb Zvid said, "Ha v'ha bishchiv Mara. Both this ruling of the Mishnah and that ruling of the Brisa referred to the will of a seriously ill person. Velo kasha. And this is not a difficulty. Ha Bay. Here, refers to himself. I'm sorry, it refers to a case where the benefactor himself says return it. Vaha bivarai. While here,
with a healthy person,
another case refers to a case where the benefactor died and his son says return it.
Oh.
But why should that
Okay.
matter?
Now we got the story of the son.
So Masnisen, our Mishnah, Deka Amar Tanu Nosnin, that if the benefactor said to give the will to the beneficiary, we give it. B'dide. This refers to a case where the benefactor himself says return it. Devar mihadar, who? Because he can retract his will. I don't get it. I thought we said he couldn't retract.
We said that in the step before, we said when somebody writes a will, a shchiv meira, that's a bar mahader. He can change his mind about who he wants to give the property to, because it's not a done deal when he makes the gift to Jew number one, because maybe the reason is because it doesn't really take effect until after the benefactor passes away. So in the meantime, it's understood that he could change his mind and give it to somebody else, because the person doesn't he doesn't get it until he doesn't really own it at all. he doesn't own it. He doesn't own it until the benefactor passes away. But so therefore, the benefactor can give a matna shchiv meirah to Jew number one, and even if he gives it to him and he has it in his hand, nevertheless, a week later, a month later, the benefactor can change his mind and give a second matna shchiv meirah to Jew number two. And then when he passes away, and both of these two guys come running to the Bezdin, and each one of them claims that he gave me Blackacre. So the Bezdin, who's the Bezdin going to award Blackacre to? They're going to award Blackacre to Jew number two. Because when it comes to it, matna shchiv meirah, the latest dated gift wins the day, as long as it was before the benefactor passed away, which is not the case in a matnas bori. In the case of a matnas bori, it doesn't depend on the giving over doesn't take place. It takes place right now. The person's alive. He wants to give a gift. He makes out the document. He gives the gift. He gives the document of Blackacre gift to Jew number one. It's a done deal. Jew number one gets Blackacre, and the benefactor cannot change his mind. So even if he writes a second document to Jew number two, and they both go to Bezdin, in that case, with the fact that the first document was a matnas bori, so Jew number one is going to win, because when it comes to a matnas bori, we go according to the earliest dated document. If there's two people that have a document that says that the benefactor gave Blackacre to them, the one who has the earliest dated document is going to be awarded Blackacre. Okay, but now Rav Zid is saying the difference is between he's saying that both the Mishnah and the Brisa were talking about a matna shchiv meirah. So it only takes effect upon the death of the benefactor, and he could change his mind until then. But what's the difference? In one case, and it's in one case we say if the benefactor says give it to Jew number one, we do, and in the other case we don't give it to Jew number one, even if the benefactor says give it to him. So we're saying the difference is because this case that we give it is because the benefactor himself that gave the gift is still alive, and he says to give it to him. Oh, so you're saying you don't understand. Right. Why does that? How does that make sense? That's exactly the opposite of what we learned yesterday. We're going to have to see why it is that we're not concerned for fraud in the case when the benefactor himself, Gemora says, b'didei, the person who wrote the document and gave it, presumably gave it, he's saying to when it's lost, he's telling the best and give it back to the person who lost it, and we listen to him. Why are we not worried about a case of fraud. Why are we not? Yeah. I'll tell you why we're not worried. Because if that document that's given to Jew number one, if it's an earlier date, he's going to lose. If the benefactor changed his mind and gave Blackacre to Jew number two in document two, which is dated later than document number one, so since it's a case of a document of a shchiv meirah, so then we say the opposite halacha. We say that the later document is the winning document. So there's no harm in us giving this document to Jew number one. So that's why we listen to him. There's no harm.
Why do we say the later document is the one that wins? I thought we said you can't retract.
So we're saying that there's two different dinim here. In the case of a shchiv meirah, we say you could change your mind, but in the case of a matnas bori, we say you cannot change your mind. So what Reb Zvid is now telling us is he's saying that both of the cases are cases of a shchiv meirah. So our first approach would be to say, yeah, give it back, because that's the earlier document anyway. He's not going to be able to defraud a document that's being held by Jew number two that has a later date. If the benefactor says give it back to Jew number one, so we give it back to him, no problem. He's not gonna be able to win against Jew number two anyway. That's in the case where the one that wrote the document is telling us give it back. We have to understand is why is the din different when the benefactor passes away and now his son is saying give it back to Jew number one? What's the reason in that case that we don't give it back?
Because you can't retract?
Well, the halacha should be the same. Even I would say it's regardless of whether the benefactor passed away or not, but the later dated document is going to be the winning document, unless that later document is made after the benefactor passed away. But we'll have to see further in the Gemora, see how the Gemora is going to go into the case of the where the beret, we call him, the son of the benefactor, is the one who's in the Bezdin and demanding that we give the document back. So let's go over this again. Do we have time? Oh yeah, it's only 12:15. Okay. In other words, let's go from Masnisen. Masnisen, the Ka'amar Tenu Nosnin. Want to read, Luke?
I'm trying to find it. Let's see. Masnisen, our Mishnah. Jaka Amar Tanu Nosnin. That if the benefactor said to give the will to the beneficiary, we give it. Bedide refers to a case where the benefactor himself tells us to return it.
Right.
Devar mihadar, who? We need not be concerned for fraud because he can retract. He's allowed to retract in this case.
Why is he allowed to retract in this case? Because we're talking about a case where he gave Jew number one a matnas shchiv meira. He gave him a deathbed gift. And that's the rule of the deathbed gift, that the giver can retract and decide to give it to somebody else.
Damrinan. We say, I nami yehava leinish acharina. Even if he gave the property to another person, by writing him a gift document after he wrote this will, leis ba peseda, there is no loss. Because dikama uvasra, between an earlier dated will and a later gift document for the same property, basra zache, the later gift document prevails because he can retract. Daha hadar be mikama, since his document's later date proves that the benefactor retracted the earlier will.
Right? We don't have any doubt in our minds that the benefactor retracted. And furthermore, we know that we say that he's allowed to do so. How do we know that he retracted? Because he wrote a second document to Jew number two after he wrote a first document to Jew number one. Why did he write a second document to Jew number two? Obviously, he changed his mind about giving it to Jew number one. Even if the document was given into the hand of Jew number one, he can change his mind, the benefactor, and now say, no, I don't want to give it to Jew number one. I'm going to write it. I'll have another document written, and I'm going to give it to Jew number two. So the Beis Din looks at the dates of these two documents, and they see that the document of Jew number two is dated later than the document that Jew number one is holding in his hand. And the Beis Din says, oh, so the Jew number two is the one who gets Blackacre, because the benefactor was allowed to change his mind. Why? Because we're talking about a matnas shchiv meira. We're talking about a deathbed gift as opposed to a matnas bori, a gift given by a person who is healthy. A person who's healthy, he's the one, when he gives a gift, that's a done deal. Whoever he gave it to, he gave it in his hand, that person acquires Blackacre. And he can't change his mind after having made a gift to the first person. But we're not talking about the matnas bori over here, according to Reb Zvid. Both cases of the Mishnah and the Bryce are talking about a matnas shchiv meira, the gift of a deathbed. Okay, so there's no peseda, because as between the earlier dated document and the latter dated document is always going to be the one that comes out the winner. Daha hadar be mikama, because it's clear as day that why is he holding that second document? Because the benefactor obviously changed his mind and decided that he doesn't want to give it to Jew number one, but rather he wants to give it to Jew number two. And that's why he wrote a document at a later date to Jew number two. And so therefore we say, oh, so Jew number two, he's the one who's Zocha over here. Okay, now that's all if the one who's coming into Beis Din and telling us to give the document back is the benefactor himself who's still alive. But now the Gemora continues. Hikotani b'braisa.
Hikotani b'braisa. But when the Brisa teaches af al pi shenehem modim, even though both parties agree, lo yachazir lo lezeh v'lo lezeh, we do not return it, not to this one and not to that one. Rinan, because we say Dilma Kasav Avuha Lahai. Perhaps the father wrote the will to this person. V'im lin v'lo Yahave Nihale. But he reconsidered and did not give it to him. Uva tsar avuha, and after the father died, kasav ihu leinish acharina. The son, having inherited the property, wrote a gift document in which he granted the property to another person. Vi hava le, and gave it to him.
Well, who wrote this document and gave it to a different person?
The son. The son who inherited the property writes. He decides that he's changed his mind, that he doesn't want to do what his father said. So he writes it and gives it to a second person.
Oh, okay.
Lahasha, and now Ka Hadar Be Nehahu. Son wants to retract, but he's not allowed to, because it's a bore. Right?
He wants to retract. Right? Yeah. Right? So the son is writing. In other words, after the father passed away, at that point in time, who owns Blackacre now after the father passed away? The son. The son inherited the father. He doesn't need to have a document. He inherited his father, and he inherited Blackacre. Why? Because the father did not give it to Jew number one. He had a document written for him, but then he changed his mind, the father, in his lifetime, and he never gave him the document at all. If he would have given him the document, then the Jew number one would have gotten this property at the time of the death of the father. There was no other. He never changed his mind right. But let's not get confused. In the scenario that the Gemora is presenting, we're saying that perhaps what happened was the father, this document that's made out to Jew number one, maybe the father never decided to give it to Jew number one. Jew number one doesn't have the document in his hand. We're talking about, I guess, about Yeah, we're talking about a case, right, where the son is saying to the Bezdin, give this document to Jew number one. Give it to him. So and we're saying we're not going to give it back. Why? Because maybe the father never gave it to Jew number one, and Jew number one never got the property when the father passed away. Who got the property when the father passed away? The son. Now the son is writing a matnas bori to Jew number two. So now Jew number two, that Jew number two will acquire right away. So therefore, in other words, what we're concerned that what happened is the son, when he says to give it back to Jew number one, what we're concerned about is that maybe the son has changed his mind. He doesn't like the fact that he gave the property to Jew number two, and if we're going to give the document back to Jew number one would win against Jew number two. And so we can't give it back to Jew number one.
Why would he win?
Because that document that he's holding was a matnas chimera, was given in the lifetime of the father, and we don't have any other evidence that the father gave to anybody else, but we're saying perhaps the reason why the Jew number one doesn't have the document is because he never got the document in his hand, because the father decided after he had it written to not give it to him, and therefore the father died without Jew number one ever getting a black acre. So now that the father died and Jew number and the son inherited, he wants to and he wrote a document, a gift, matnas bori, to Jew number two. If the Bezdin is going to give this document of a matnas chimera to Jew number one, he's going to win against Jew number two. Why is he going to win? Because the Bezdin is going to say, if this document is for real, this matnas chimera, and the son is saying it's for real, if it's for real, he's the winner. Because what it means is that the father, before he passed away, gave this document to Jew number one and said, I want you to have Blackacre after I take leave from this world.
And he can't retract.
Even though he could retract, but it's not an issue of retracting over here. He passed away, the benefactor, and the only one who Jew number one is competing with is Jew number two, who has a document of that the son of the benefactor who inherited the property gave to him. So the best thing is going to look at it and say, well, look, if both of these documents are for real, so then we're going to say that Jew number one is the one who wins should be awarded the property, because he got it from the father. But the Gemora is saying the Bezdin should be concerned for the possibility that the reason why the document was found and in the shuk and somebody returned it to the Bezdin is because Jew number one never got it.
In which case the father never gave it.
Well, yeah, why did Jew number one never get it? Because the father changed his mind after he wrote it.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay. Take care. Thank you.
Okay, Phil, We're going to get you a Rashi one day.
Yeah.
There's a Rashi over here that's going to make up for all the times that you didn't read over here. You see this one? Kamazocha?
Yeah, I see.
You could practice that one. So when your time comes, you'll be able to.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, all the best.